In this grade 12 mathematical literacy video, we are looking at the 2024 May-June examination paper. We are in paper 1 and we are going to look at the full paper from the beginning to the end. The question paper is linked in the description box below. Before we proceed, if you are ever going to find yourself in a position where you need private lessons on anything that we are going to touch in this video, here's how you can get those. Now, if you need one-on-one help with anything that we have covered in this video or this subject in general, we have a visual program that can help you with just that. From anywhere in the country, all you need is an email and a WhatsApp, and we are able to give you personalized help for a monthly fee. This will cover full lesson recordings as well as notes and study materials for any of your subjects that you need personal help with. This will include some of the subjects that are not even covered on this channel. For example, subjects like history. You will soon see our full subject list. We will also cover scopes for those specific subjects as well as attempt past papers together. But what's most important about these virtual sessions is that you get full-time communication, meaning from the hours of 8 o'clock to 4 p.m. you are able to send in your questions. Even if you send them at late, between the hours of 8 and 4 you will get replies to your questions. You will get to go back and forth and get full-time attention on any question that you do have. Even if we have to repeat something over and over again, you get to have that personalized help that is helpful to you. As you can see with some of the examples there, we get to exchange scripts, we get to exchange question papers, and you get to show me what it is that you wrote, and you even get markings for your questions to see how you actually do perform when it comes to a specific question or a specific subject. Grade 10 to grade 12, as well as those who are upgrading and rewriting, those are the full list of subjects that we do offer. If you are interested in any of this, for you to be able to get your price quotation, it is very simple. All you have to do is email me on that email address that you see there. When you do email, make sure that in the subject line you write your name and surname, and then in the body of your email, that's where you will tell me your grade and the subjects that you need help with. It can be one subject or it can be a mixture of subject. Hence, we are saying that you need to email for you to be able to get your price quotation. Now, because this is one-on-one, it means that it puts a limit on the number of people I can take per month. So I'm going to be limiting it to 10 students per month. So make sure that you email to secure your spot. Now that that's out of the way, let's get back to our question paper, starting with question 1 of our question paper. This question paper had 4 questions in total, and at the beginning we obviously have question 1.1, and it says social media is a collective term for websites and applications, in bracket apps, that focus on the communication, community-based input, interactions, content sharing, and collaboration. People use social media to stay in touch and interact with friends and family in various communities. So our question 1 starts off looking at percentages of people using social media on daily basis. We have a bar graph of social media apps, and the questions that follow are going to be based on this bar graphs that are shown in your picture there. So question 1 is basically going to be those light questions that are out of 2 marks each. You will see it when you download it in the description box below. By the way, if I have not mentioned it before, the question paper as well as the addendum are linked in the description box below. So just go into the description, click those links, and they should be able to download the question paper as well as the addendum directly into your device. Because question 1 is one of those questions that we say they are the simple questions, you will see there are 2 marks each. Questions, they're just based on what you are seeing. You're answering based on the scenarios and the charts and the diagrams that you are seeing. So what I'm going to do, we're not going to answer question 1 in this video because I'm taking it that it's going to be the fairly simple questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you slides of the memorandum of question 1, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you time to just pause and take screenshot of each slide or take notes, whatever works best for you. From question 2 going on to question 4, we are going to be answering our question paper together. So let's go ahead and look at our question 2. Question 2, 2.1, Mr. Randy Ford moves from USA to South Africa and was appointed as a head of Department of Mathematical Literacy and Mathematics at Zunodel High School in Johannesburg. Below is the extract of his payslip. So we are seeing his payslip. What's most important is that you will see his basic salary, his allowance, as well as his deductions, and at the bottom you will see his gross income as well as deductions denoted in A and net pay denoted in B, which we are going to have to calculate for ourselves at some point, so you can expect those questions in there. So but what's most important in a salary or in a pay slip is you are going to look at his gross salary. We are seeing that 41,000 and 72,013 rands, as well as his deductions, and then we are going to go into some questions and see what it is that they have asked about his pay slip. It says use the salary slip above to answer the questions that follow. In 2.1.1 it says explain the meaning of payee as seen in the context of the salary slip above. So any question that wants you to explain the meaning, basically they just want you to describe what payee is, but the keynote here is that you have to give it in context. The tip is give the description as you know it, but include the name of the person in the scenario in that description. If they're talking about a company, include the name of the company. So we know that payee just basically means the more you earn, the more you will pay. But instead of saying that, you're going to put it in context by including Mr. Randy's name in that description. So we'll say the more Randy earns, the more he will pay in income tax to SARS. So that's us putting it in context. So context just basically means whatever scenario you're dealing with. If it's the name of a person, include them in there. If it's the name of a company, include it in there. But it's just basically you giving the definition just as you know it. Then in 2.1.2 it says show by means of calculation how the gross income of 41,000 and for 72 rands 13 cents has been determined. So when you're looking at his earnings there at the top, you're seeing that he had a basic salary of 39,380 and 75 cents, and to it they add a home allowance of 1,691 and 38 cents. Adding those two together, that's what's going to give you your gross salary. So for 2 marks, you're going to add the 39,380.75 cents plus the 1,691 and 38 cents, and that's going to give you the 41,072 rand 13 cents. Obviously, not all pay slips are the same, so it's going to be a matter of you playing with your calculator to find out what they used in order to determine the gross income on a different pay slip. In some pay slips, they add car allowances instead of home allowances. So it's just going to be a matter of you playing with your calculator. It's going to be a quick calculation. Then in 2.1.3 it says calculate the value of A, Mr. Ford's total deduction. Remember in the pay slip we saw that for total deductions they just put A next to it. They didn't tell us what the total deduction is. So it's going to be up to us to be able to calculate that deduction. So let's go back to the pay slip. Under deductions we are seeing that there's a tax payee, there is a medical aid, as well as a home loan. Those are the only deductions that they have shown there with the amounts. So you're basically just going to add those three amounts. So the 8,496 and 32 cents for payee, 1,701 for medical aid, as well as 15,250 for our home loan, and it gives us our total deductions at 25,447 rands and 32 cents. That's the answer to A. 2.1.4 says Mr. Ford informed his wife that he will have a net salary of 15,625 rands and 81 cents. Verify with calculation whether Mr. Ford is correct. Write a formula for calculating the net salary to assist you in the calculations. So to get net salary, you basically say gross salary minus deductions. So that's the formula that we're going to start with. They gave us our gross income and we have just calculated the total deductions. So this calculation should be easy for us. Net salary, gross minus deduction. We know that our gross from the pay slip said it's 41,071 rands 13 cents minus the deductions that we just calculated of 25,447 rands and 32 cents, and it gives us 15,624 and 81 cents, which means that Mr. Ford is incorrect. Why? Because he said 15,625. He didn't say it's going to be around. If he had said it's going to be around, we would have said Mr. Ford is correct. But he said his net salary will be. So that makes him incorrect because he's wrong by 1 unit. 2.1.5 says calculate what percentage is paid to the employee towards medical aid. Round off your answer to the nearest percentage. Typically with medical aid, there is usually a portion that is paid by the employee and the portion that is paid by the employer. So we want the percentage of the portion that is paid by the employee. We see there under 4K medical aid that the employee pays 1,701, whereas the total membership fee is 4,227 rands. So basically, to get the portion of the employee alone, you're going to say 1,701, which is paid by the employee, divide over the total amount of being a member of this medical aid scheme, which is 4,027 rands, and you multiply the whole thing with 100. It gives you 42,239,8808. Rounding off, it gives you 42%. Basically, what this means is to be a member of this medical aid scheme, both the contribution from the employer and the employee needs to total to 4,027 rands. What the question wanted was the percentage of the portion that is only paid by the employee. So the employee pays 1,701, which means the rest is paid by the employer. So when we are calculating that into a percentage, that's how we got that 42%. In 2.2, we are looking at a question that deals with another form of a source document. By the way, if you haven't realized, the topic that we've been dealing with in question 2 since 2.1 has been financial documents. So before, in 2.1, we dealt with a salary advice, and now what we are going to deal with is going to be an e-filing from SARS. So look at what 2.2 says. It says, one of the major sources of revenue for the government is personal income tax. Mr. Ford does extra work after hours not necessarily shown on his salary advice and submits his tax returns via SARS e-filing, and Annexure A shows an extract of Mr. Ford's e-filing calculation. So basically what we are going to see in Annexure A is that the salary that they mentioned in his salary advice is going to be included in Annexure A together with all the other incomes or other sources of incomes that Mr. Ford has. Basically, in other words, it just means that Mr. Ford has more than one source of income. There is his salary and the work that he does after hours. But in your taxes, you're going to have one document that shows everything that you do earn. So basically, we are looking at a different form of a financial document. This one is a SARS income tax. Our first question in 2.2.1 says determine the total amount of income assessed by SARS for Mr. Ford after all allowances and extra remuneration have been considered. Use Annexure A to answer the question. So we are going to look into our SARS document to find the total amount of income that Mr. Ford earns. You are seeing in Annexure A, we are going to zoom into it a little bit, but it's a total. In Annexure A, we have a SARS income tax. You are seeing it zoomed into. Remember, what we are looking for is the total income that he receives. So you see there that it starts with
income taxable, and then we have annual payments and other allowances, pension fund contribution, reimbursement, and medical aid schemes, and it has a total of 719,720 as his total income. So that becomes the answer that we've been looking for in our question. So your answer to 2.2.1 is going to be 719,720. I understand that with that you can look at pension fund and look at medical aid and think those are deductions, they're not supposed to be part of my income. But look at the whole thing. It's a pension fund contribution as well as medical aid fringe benefits. Basically they are his allowances, the pension fund that he gets from his employer. So those are the allowances that we are talking about, so they get included as part of his allowances and they make up for income. And then in 2.2.2 it says use annexure A and identify Mr. Ford's taxable income after assessment calculation. Now in 2.2.1 what we were looking for was his total income, but not all of your income is taxable. There is what we call taxable income, and when you're looking into our annexure A you will see it at 583,797. You will see that it's taxable because it's after we have eliminated or subtracted deductions out of it. They had travel expense deductions and retirement and contribution deductions. Those two amounts are not taxable, that's why you had to deduct them. Then after you deduct them from the 583,797, that's where you can calculate your tax from. Not all of your income is taxable, that's why we have something called taxable income. In 2.2.3 it says the e-filing calculations on annexure A show a value of 4,163.70 as the calculated result. Show by means of calculation how the amount was calculated and explain whether this amount is to be paid to SARS or if it is the amount that should be paid to Mr. Ford. So basically they have calculated his tax amount and the tax amount ended up being 4,163. What we want to know is how did they get to that amount, and is it payable or is it receivable by Mr. Ford? So you see it's at the very bottom of the calculation, and ours is just to prove it. To prove it, you are just going to use his subtotal and minus his employee and tax credits, because fortunately for us in this scenario our tax calculations have been done for us. If we were not looking at a SARS document we would have to calculate the whole income thing ourselves, but they have shown us our subtotal of 133,571.92 and employee tax and credits of 129,408.22. So what you basically do is you take those two amounts, you subtract each other, and you will get the 4,163 rands and 70 cents. And we are going to say that because the subtotal is higher than the deduction of employee and tax credits, that means that this amount is payable by Mr. Ford. Payable by Mr. Ford basically means that Mr. Ford is the one who owes SARS because the subtotal is bigger than the employee tax credits. If the subtotal was smaller, we were basically going to say that SARS owes it to Mr. Ford. But the SARS, the employee tax and the tax credits basically just means that they are his deductibles out of the tax amount, the total tax amount that he has to pay. In 2.2.4 it says according to the assessment done on e-filing, it is apparent that Mr. Ford needs to pay 149,996.92 on his taxable income before rebates. Make use of the tax table for 2023 on annexure B and verify whether this amount is correctly calculated. Now the 4,163 in 2.2.3 was after rebates. We are trying to calculate the one before we subtracted the tax rebate. So what we are going to start with is his taxable income. Remember it was 583,797, and then we see that the normal tax that they calculated for him is 149,996. So basically we have to prove that with that salary, taxable income, or rather we are going to end up with that amount. So we know that it's 583. He falls under tax bracket D, that's between 448 and 461, and it starts with 115,762 plus 36% of taxable income. By the way, I'm on the tariffs of tax column, and then we are going to minus any amount above 488,700. So we are going to do that calculation. We're not going to worry about rebates because they said the taxable income, the amount payable before rebates. So we start with that amount, 115,762 plus open bracket, it's 36%, multiply by open another bracket, which is very important, and you start with his taxable income of 583,797 minus the amount above, which was the 488,700, close bracket, then close the first bracket that you opened. We work with what's inside the small bracket or the inner bracket first. So the 115 stays the way it was, the 36% stays the way it was. When we take them his taxable income of 583 and minus the 448, we are left with 95,097. Then we are going to work that bracket now. So that means in the next step, the 115 stays the way it is. We do the calculation in our calculator of 96% of 95,000, and it's going to give us 34,234 and 92 cents. We plus those two amounts together, and indeed they give us 149,996 and 92 cents. And to conclude our statement, we say yes, the amount is correctly calculated. So in case that was too fast for you, make sure that you go back and you replay it, and you make sure that you understand. If you place your brackets correctly and you work with your brackets as you are going from the inner brackets to the outer bracket, you shouldn't have any problem so long as you take it step by step. So basically it's BODMAS. You know that with BODMAS you deal with the brackets first. Moving on to 2.3, it says Mr. Ford is a homeowner and receives a monthly water bill. The city of Ekurhuleni will provide a free basic water service per month. The following rates will apply. We have a tariff summary. It says a number of residential units multiplied by, we have a 0 to 6 kiloliters, a 7 to 15, a 16 to 30, 31 to 45, then a 46 to more, and then we have the tariffs from the 2022/2023 and the 2023/2024. So what's going to be important for you as you're answering questions is that you have to look at not just the 2023, but like look at what the 2023 is paired with. So look at our first question in 2.3.1. It says determine the tariff in rand per kiloliter for 15 kiloliters of water usage per month in 2023/2024. So that means we are looking at the last column and we are looking for the rate for the 15 kiloliters per month. So that was basically the second bracket of 7 to 15. So 7 to 15, what does it charge you in 2023/2024? And that's going to be 29 rands and 86 cents. So if it had said 2022 to 2023, then it would have been 26 rands and 66 cents. So basically we are paying attention to which column. There is two different years that are being shown. So when we are talking about 2023, because it's in both, you have to pay careful attention as to which one. So our answer is 29 rands and 86 cents. Then from there we are going to move on to our next question in 2.3.2. It says calculate the percentage increase for water tariffs from 2022 to 2023 to 2023/2024 if the household uses approximately 30 kiloliters of water per month. So use the formula below. So basically it says the percentage increase from 2024 minus 2023 to 2020 all over 2023. So basically what's going to be our 2024 is our last column, and 2023 is going to be our previous column because 2023 is in both, right? So basically we are going to say that when we're looking at the 30 kiloliters column, we're looking at column 3. Column 3 shows us that in 2024, that is the 2023 to 2024, it's 36 rands and 58 cents minus 2023, which is going to be the 32.66 over the 32.66 multiplied by 100, and then it's going to give us a 12% increase. Then in 2.3.3 it says Mr. Ford made a comment in 2023 after calculating the percentage increase as indicated that he will pay 300 rands more for using 35 kiloliters of water in 2024. Verify his statement by showing all calculations. So for 6 marks there, what they want us to do is to calculate the water tariff for 35 kiloliters of water using the 2024 prices, and then use the 2023 prices, and then subtract and see if the difference is actually the 300 that Mr. Ford claims. So they started there with the 2022 or 2023, which can be also seen as our 2023. So basically they said, using the first column, remember we are working with 35 kiloliters. So we start with the first 6 kiloliters. The first 6 kiloliters is at 16 rands and 18 cents, and then we are going to plus it with the 9 kiloliters. How did I get 9 kiloliters for the next column or the next row? I got it by saying 15 minus the 6 that is above. That gives me 9 kiloliters at 26 rands 66 cents. Then for column number 3, we are working with 15 kiloliters. How did I get 15 kiloliters? I said 30 minus the 15 above, not the 16. If I had done the 16, it would have given me 14, and that would have been an error. So it's the one that you are in the row of minus the row above, and it gives me 15 kiloliters at 32 rands and 66 cents. And then column 4, we say 45 minus 30 is going to give me the 5 kiloliters at 40 rands and 64 cents. We end there, because when you start with the 6 plus the 9 plus the 15 plus the 5, that's going to give you 35. That's how you know that I have accounted for all 35 kiloliters they say he consumed. And then that's going to give me 1,030 rands 12 cents. Then in 2023/2024, I'm going to do the exact same thing, except this time I'm using the 2024 prices, and in the end it gives me 1,153 and 76 cents. Remember, his claim said that the difference between these two amounts is going to be 300, meaning that from 2022/2023 to 2023/2024 I had increased by 300. So to get that, you take the total for 2024, you minus the total for 2023. So the total for 2024, 1,153 minus the 1,030, and it gives me 123 and 64 cents as a difference. So that means that Mr. Ford's statement is incorrect. We have another video on this very channel on tariff systems, how to calculate tariff systems. What becomes most important for you is to be able to determine those kiloliters in between. So for example, when you get to row 2, being able to know that in row 2 we are dealing with 9 kiloliters. How we got the 9 kiloliters, because the mistake that most people will make is they will take the 15 and minus the 7, and that's going to be incorrect. So you have to get into the practice of, I take the 15, I minus the 6. And even in that video that I just mentioned, that's the kind of things that we dealt with when it comes to tariff systems. So make sure that you watch them and practice it. And now we are going to move on to question 3 of our question paper, and it's dealing with data handling as our topic. In 3.1, it says, with its fourth Rugby World Cup victory, South Africa stands at the top of the ranking list. Commitment to the cause, confidence to the job, belief in the system. This is the South African way. It has won South Africa the 2023 Men's Rugby World Cup. So we are seeing a poster of the 2023 Men's Rugby World Cup. So basically this is going to be a question on data handling, but we are going to be, it's basically based on the World Rugby World Cup. So we're going to be using the weights of our rugby players to basically come up with the questions on the data handling. So you can expect your data handling question to be based on literally anything. Here we are dealing with a rugby team. In some questions you're dealing with a classroom full of students. In some questions you're dealing with marks of students. So it tells you that in an extra C shows the height of the average South African man and the rugby players with their positions in the team as well as their respective heights. 3.1.1 determine the height range with the regards to the rugby players used in the set of data. So we are in an extra C. We are seeing that we have the first column shows us the average height of a South African man. We're not interested in that. We're interested in the last three columns. The first one shows us the lowest height is Chelsea Colby with 1.70 centimeters, which I believe to be an error. It's supposed to be meters, not centimeters. And then the highest height or the maximum height is RG Snyman with 2.06, and you take the two amounts, you minus them, and they give you 0.36 because the formula for range, remember, is maximum minus minimum. Then in 3.1.2, it says the average height of a South African rugby player is 1.86. Average height meaning the mean is 1.86, and you use the formula and determine the total height in meters of 15 rugby players in Springboks. So the mean, they have given it to us at 1.86. What we want is the total height, and the total number of players is 15. Now usually to get the total height you will basically just add the height of all players together, but we don't have the height of all 15 players, so that's why we have to use the formula. So in our formula we substitute the mean at 1.86 and we say equals to total height. That's what we are looking for, and we divide by a total number of players. They told us is 15. Then we take 15 to the other side of the equals to. It changes from divide to multiply, so it's 1.86 multiplied by 15 is equals to total height. Those two amounts, when you multiply together, they give you 27.9 meters as the total height of all players. How we usually find this amount is you will take the heights of all players and add it together. But you can see from the information we've been given 8 players, not 15. So how would we have found the rest? That's why we have to use this formula. Then we move on to 3.2. In 3.2 it says rugby is arguably one of the most body type inclusive sports. Unlike long distance running or bodybuilding, whatever shape you are, there is a place for you in rugby field. Annexure D shows two box and whisker diagrams comparing the weight of New Zealand and South African rugby players. Use the box and whisker diagram in Annexure D to answer the questions that follow. In 3.2.1 it says the 5-point summary of New Zealand is as follows. The Q3 is 113 kg, the maximum is 140 kg, Q1 is A and mean is 70 kg, Q2 is 100 kg. If the interquartile range is 25 kg, determine the value for A, which is quartile 1. So we know that IQR or interquartile range formula is interquartile range is equals to Q3 minus Q1. We have been given the interquartile range at 25 kg. We know that Q3 is 113 kg. They gave it to us in the box. Then we minus Q1. Q1 is just been given as A. So basically we are solving for A. We take 25 kg to the other side, it becomes minus 25 kg, and it gives us A at 88 kg. Then in 3.2.2 it says, which one of the following terms best describes the data displayed in the box and whisker? Is it discrete data or continuous data? Give a reason for your answer. The best way to distinguish between discrete and continuous data is that discrete data is countable, meaning you can count a thing. It's like counting the number of people in the class. You can simply count them, number 1 person, number 2 person, number 3 person, right? That's counting. Whereas continuous data is you need to measure it. You can't count it. You can't just physically count it. So for example, here we are dealing with the weight of the rugby players. To get somebody's weight, you don't count a person's weight. You can't say, I can count your weight by just looking at them. They need to get on a scale and you need to measure it. And that's what we call continuous data. So the answer to 3.2.2 is continuous data, because it is about the weight of the rugby teams, and the weight can be measured. If it was about the number of players in the rugby team, that would have been a discrete data. Why? Because I can count the number of people in a team. I can count that there is 15 people in a team. But when I need their height or their weight, that is measurement, and that's what we call continuous data. In 3.2.3 it says, the box and whisker diagram compare the weight between the New Zealand and the South African rugby teams. What term is used to define the value that is very far apart from other values? That value is called the outlier. The best example I like of this is if you are measuring the weight of kids in a grade R class and their teacher. Their weight will be kind of similar because they are kids of the same age. But then the weight of the teacher is going to be an outlier because it's going to be way too different from everybody else. And that's what we call the outlier. 3.3, according to the international statistics, there is a great difference between salaries paid to soccer players and rugby players. Annexure E shows the information on salaries paid to famous rugby players and soccer players in different currencies. Use information in Annexure C to answer the questions that follow. 3.3.1 says Neymar Jr. and Cristiano Ronaldo are two of the most famous players in world of football. Convert Cristiano Ronaldo's yearly salary to rands. So we are going to look at our Annexure E. In Annexure E, we are going to see Cristiano Ronaldo's salary, and we are going to also be given the conversion rate, and our job is simply to convert it from euro to rands. So we see that Cristiano Ronaldo there, he earns 35 million euros per year, and we just need to convert it using the exchange rate there. It says 1 euro is equals to 20 rands and 5 cents. So you simply just multiply it and it gives you 701,750,000 rands. So when you're converting from a bigger currency to ours, you simply multiply and your answer, you will know it's correct if it's a bigger amount. In 3.3.2, it says determine the median annual salary in millions of the given 5 world famous rugby players provided. As you know, with median, the first thing that you need to do is before we determine the median, we need to take the 5 world famous rugby players and arrange them in ascending order, and then find the median. That's if they are not already in ascending order. So we see there that annual salaries of world famous rugby players column, we see that it's not in ascending order. So that's the first thing that we are going to do to make sure that it is in ascending order. I see that it starts with 20.13 and 221.3s, and then there is a 21, and then there's a 22, and then there's a 35. By the way, these are all in millions. So the one in the middle is the 21, and when I write it in millions, it's going to be 21 million. If it was the 20.13, then it would have been 20,130,000. Just in case you didn't know how that you were going to write that one in millions. And then 3.3.3, it says write down the annual salary of Ronaldo to the salary of Siya Kolisi in ratio form and simplify it as something is to 1, hence explain the meaning of the calculated ratio. So we knew from our calculation before that in rands, Cristiano earns 701,750,000, and we seen that from the annual statistics that Siya Kolisi earns 35 million. Remember that 35 is supposed to be converted to million, and because it's the side of Siya Kolisi that's supposed to be converted into 1, we divide it by that amount. So 35 divided by 35 is going to give us 1, and then on the other side, what we did on the left we will do on that side, and it gives us 20,005. And what it means is that for every 1 rand earned by Siya Kolisi, Ronaldo earns 20 rands and 5 cents, and that's basically what it means. Question 4 is a finance question, particularly on sales, cost of sales, as well as profit and profit margins. Question 1, 4.1, Pink Power. Barbie movie breaks record merchandise sellouts. The Barbie movie shattered this year's box office records in opening weekend with $125 million in ticket sales. The film had $145 million budget, backed by Warner Bros. And Mattel. Even before the movie was released, merchandise sold out. For example, Barbie tumblers at $19.99 and the Barbie blanket in a bag at $22.99. These merchandise items are currently on back order until 2024 June and are now selling on eBay for $77 and $125 respectively. So basically what we are going to do for question 4 or 4.1 in particular, we are going to be looking at the questions on profit, profit margins, revenue, as well as cost of sales using the information on the Barbie movie amounts. You're seeing that the ticket sales was at $125 million, and we are seeing that the budget at $145. We are also seeing that they sold some merchandise at different prices. There is different prices that it had originally and the prices that are on eBay. All of this is going to be used in our information. So we are seeing the Barbie tumbler there that they are now showing on eBay. Remember, it used to be $19.99 when it was sold originally, but now that it's on back order on eBay, it's $77. And we also have the Barbie blanket in a bag at $125. It used to be $22.99. All of these amounts we are going to use as we are answering the questions that follow. In 4.1.1a, it says write the formula for profit in given context. So we know that to find profit, you basically take your income and you minus your expenses, and it is no difference here. We are going to say whatever the income was, and we are going to minus the expenses that follow. So the formula for profit is that simple. They don't want the calculation of the profit, they just want the formula. So your answer is profit is equals to income minus expense, and it's as simple as that. And that would have answered your A. And then in B it says determine the amount of profit in rands meant by eBay users selling the Barbie blanket in the bag for $125 per blanket. The exchange rate is $1 is equals to 18 rands and 36 cents. Remember, this blanket used to be $22.99, but now on eBay it's $125. So basically the profit, meaning that the person would have paid $22.99 and now they're selling it for $125. How much profit are they going to make? So it is now selling for $125. They bought it for $22.99. They make a profit of $102.01. The question wanted the answer in rands, so we need to convert the profit to rands by multiplying with 18 rands and 36 cents, and that gives us 1,872 rands 9036 converted, and it's 1,872 and 90 cents in rands. And that way you would have answered your question. It is still for only 2 marks because what we are testing here, or what the examiner is testing there, is your conversion skills. In 4.1.2, it says verify with calculation that if the Barbie movie made a revenue of $125 million worldwide during the opening weekend with a profit margin of 60%, the expense for opening weekend amounted to 50 million. You may use the following formula. Profit margin is equals to revenue minus expense all over revenue times 100. So they told us the profit margin is 60%. So where there's profit margin, we are just going to substitute the 60%, and then we are going to minus the 125 million as our revenue. The expense we don't know, so I'm just going to write expense all over the revenue of 125 million. So then I'm going to multiply both sides with 125. On this side it's going to minus the 125 that's on the bottom, and on the other side it's going to multiply with the 60%. 60% can also be written as 0 over 6, 0.6 is the same thing. Then we say 0.6 times 125 gives me 75 is equals to 125 minus expense. I take the 75 on this side and the expense on the other side, and it gives me 125 minus 75, and it gives me 50 million. We have indeed proven that the expense was calculated to be 50 million. Our calculation is proven correct. 4.2, the graph below indicates the age groups that watch the Barbie movie. We have Gen X, which is the people who are 40 plus, that's 10% of them. The millennials, that's the ages 30 to 39, that's 15% of them. The Zennials, which is the people between the ages 23 to 29, and that's 28%. And then there's Gen Z, which is the people from 13 to 22, and that's 47% of them. 4.2.1 says the Gen Z population in South Africa is estimated to be 21 million of people. Of these, 47% watch the Barbie movie at the estimated cost of 75 rands per ticket for a regular 2D movie. Calculate the total gross income made from the Gen Z population in South Africa. Now, the population of all Gen Zs in South Africa is 21 million, but not all of them watched. Only 47% of them watched. So what we need to do is we need to get 47% of 21 million. Then we are going to say of all of those people, if they paid 75 rands, how much did we make? So we see our calculation starts with 21 million multiplied by 47%, and we get the number of Gen Zs that watched the movie. That's 9,870,000 people, and all of them paid 75 rands per ticket. So the income was 740 million and 250. The trick here was that you be careful that you don't use the 75 rands on the 21,000 because not all of them watched. Then in 4.2.2 it says, what is the probability of a 2-year-old going to the movies to watch the popular Barbie movie? So other than just using logic, from the graph that we were given, we know that it started with Gen Z, and our Gen Z started from the ages of 13 to 22 years old. So because our graph started there, it basically just tells us that the probability of a 2-year-old watching is 0%. Other than from just the logic of a 2-year-old is not paying for a movie ticket, but just using the graph itself, the probability is going to be 0%, or you can just say 0, or you can just say it's impossible. Either way, you would have answered the question. 4.3, at the movies you have the option to buy ice cream before watching the Barbie movie. Below is a tree diagram illustrating flavors with toppings and the possible outcomes. So basically here we are looking at a probability tree diagram, and it's about the ice cream. You start choosing my ice cream. We have vanilla, strawberry, and chocolate, and then you can have your toppings. For toppings, you can either have nuts or sprinkles. So your outcomes becomes vanilla with nuts or vanilla with sprinkles, which is B, which they're going to ask us. It's probably going to be our first question to put in that answer, the vanilla and sprinkles. Or you have chosen strawberry ice cream with nuts, which gives you strawberry and nuts, or strawberry and sprinkles. Or you have chosen a chocolate ice cream with nuts, which your outcomes becomes chocolate and nuts or chocolate with sprinkles. In total, our total outcomes is 6 possibilities. It's 6 possibilities, which is very important, because when we are dealing with probabilities, you always have to know the total outcomes. You always have to keep at the top of your mind. So look at our first question, 4.3.1. As we suspected, it says write the possible outcome for B. The possible outcome for B, we knew that it was vanilla and sprinkles. By the way, this is a very popular question when it comes to the tree diagram. There's always going to be one possible outcome that's missing, and it is for you to be able to read the tree diagram and fill in the amount or the possible outcome that is missing. It's one of the easy questions that comes, so you can always look forward to that one. 4.3.2 says write down the probability as a decimal fraction that you would choose chocolate ice cream with nuts. Round off your answers to 2 decimal places. So we know that our formula for a probability, if you are not familiar with, it's a favorable outcome, meaning the outcome that I'm looking for, how many options of this outcome is there, and the total outcomes, which we just determined that it is 6. All of the outcomes together are 6. Chocolate ice cream with nuts, there's only one possibility. So my favorable outcome is going to be 1 over total outcomes. My total outcomes is going to be 6. We see that in all of this tree diagram, there's only one chocolate with nuts. That's why we said 1 over 6. 1 over 6, you put it in your calculator, and it's going to give you 0.166666667 at the end. Then you round off to 2 decimal places, and that's going to give you 0.17 as your probability for chocolate with nuts. And that's going to conclude our question paper. This question paper only had 4 questions. Usually our question paper, maybe it's the September or the final ones only that have 5 questions, but for June in some provinces you can expect to have only 4 questions. If you have any questions regarding any part of this question paper, leave it for me in the comment section below, including question 1. I know that we did not go through question 1, but if you have questions about it, leave it for me in the comment section below. Remember, the question paper and the addendum are both linked in the description box below. Just click on the link and it should download the question paper straight into your device. See you again for my next video. Have YouTube recommend you more of my videos, be sure to click the like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below.